Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Golden Opportunities Coaching YouTube channel. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome back to those of you seasoned veterans of what we do around here. We've got over 360 audios available for you to check out on a variety of topics. Today, we're going to talk about something that I'm really passionate about, and that is trauma bonding. Um, Trauma bonding is a bond with someone with whom we've had a traumatic experience or a series of traumatic experiences. This can happen both in friendships, in partnerships, and most often in family dynamics. So if we have been, for example, the victim of abuse and or neglect and or harsh language or treatment, yet we still feel emotionally connected to a person, we may have a trauma bond with that person. So we're going to kind of go through about 6 things to kind of denote if that happens. Now, obviously, this isn't medical advice, and if you think you've been through a traumatic experience, work with a coach, a counselor, a pastor, a minister, psychologist, somebody who, or a team of people, preferably, who can kind of help you to walk through that. But it can be extremely difficult if you'd like to work with me directly because trauma bonding and trauma recovery is one of my specialties. You can do that through at PO Perception on Twitter. Send me a message over there, or go to the website that's in the About Me section of this particular YouTube page, and we can kind of set something up there. But first thing is, the relationships usually aren't stable. So if you are constantly in fear of how a person's going to react, so one minute they're hot, the next minute they're cold, and you almost don't want to approach them, it can be hard. If you've been gone at work all day and you have a partner or a loved one, family member, someone you live with, or someone you deal with on a daily basis at the end of your day, and you almost dread going home to them, and there's part of you that's like, gee, I hope they're in a good mood because we could have a really good time if they are. But man, if they're not, I don't want to deal with them at all. And your emotions are that roller coaster where you don't want to avoid them, but you're not sure you want to deal with them. And that's a dominant feeling, and you feel that way more often than not. That's a trauma bonding experience because there's that give and take in a negative way where, yes, you can fear their anger, you can fear their sadness, their depression, their control, their manipulation, but at the same time, when things are good, they're really, really good. And the next thing is they never change. So promises to make changes, and I'll kind of overlap 2 things here, which is they don't keep promises and changes never happen. And so what happens is the cycle you're in, that up and down cycle, if you look backwards and you go, well, they said things would be different when they got a new job, or when they had more money, or when we had time away from the kids, or when the house was paid off, or when they got it, whatever. There's always a reason by the abuser who is enacting trauma bonds, but the situations never change. And then during the come down from explosive behavior, there's always promises to change. And if one looks at, several weeks, several months, several years, it's like, wait, this person is in the cycle of promising to never do it again, and then they do it again, and then they, make a promise that it's not going to happen again, and they think they've had self-reflection. And so I want to believe, and my desire to believe is what they leverage in order to continue the controlling mechanism. And a lot of times, so for people that are active in trauma bonding, and it's not making excuses for their behavior, they've been through trauma themselves, and control mechanism is the only way they know how to kind of keep the plate spinning in their own life. So a lot of times, the harshness, the tendency towards abusive behavior, the tendency towards yelling or controlling behavior is actually born out of insecurity. And so the person that's creating the trauma bond may, yes, be behaving badly, and certainly in many cases be mentally unstable, mentally ill, abusive, and all of that. But under the surface, they may have qualities that make you question that they also, on the other side, are a really good person. And you're kind of stuck between those 2 things. Are they the good person, or are they the abuser? And the answer is they're both. Yes, recovery is possible in those situations, but recovery is also, most of the time, a multi-month or multi-year process for the person who is enacting trauma-based abuse, because they have to see themselves differently and go through behavior modification, sometimes it takes medication, sometimes it takes lots of therapy, sometimes it takes removal and dealing with addictions if they're present. So it's a major road. And so the next thing for you is, do you think it's your job to make them happy? So the big challenge there is no one can ever make somebody anything. I can't make you angry, but you can feel angry as a result of something I've done. I also can't make you happy, but something I've done can allow you to feel feelings of happiness. However, when you believe that your actions are a direct correlation and the responsibility you have to keep someone's emotional state positive, number one, that's a lot of pressure. Number two, you have to be thinking ahead a great deal. But also, that's a sign that you've got a trauma bond because you believe you've taken on responsibility for the emotional state of the other person, taking away their self accountability. So then you're almost holding them up and blocking them from growing in any sort of really defined, meaningful way. And this causes you to have to defend the relationship. And so defending of the relationship can happen with your friends, can happen with your family, can happen with your loved ones. You may lose friends or family support over this. You may even have had interaction with the local law enforcement if there's a domestic violence piece, and a lot of people are looking at you like, you got to get out, and here are the signs, and here are the warning signs, and what are you doing? And you find yourself going, yes, but when times are good, you don't understand. He or she has been through A, B, C, D. And it's unfortunate because even though I've been in this field for almost a decade and a half, I've been in a couple relationships where I did defend things that were unhealthy and did lose friends. It happens to people even who are aware of the pattern because you think that the person you're dealing with is different and that you've got it managed, and that's the self-delusion that you haven't managed and that they're going to change and you'll see, and everything you've put in, it'll pay off, months or years later, and it never does, and it can become extremely uncomfortable and difficult. The last one is you fear the unknown. So what's coming next becomes something that is never really exciting because it's like things are good, but how long do they stay that way? Things are bad, but how much worse do they get? What can possibly happen next? The chaos becomes a sense of normalcy. The only thing that you truly trust is that chaos is remaining, and that becomes your dominant state. You almost dread the next day, the next week, the next month, because what's going to happen next becomes a fear point rather than a hope point. And so hopefully this is helpful. I encourage you to reach out if you need further help. But until next time, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.